somebody saw that and was at minimum somewhat persuaded by it.
Mm-hmm. When you were walking in, I'm just curious, when you were walking into the congressional hearing and you knew, you're about to make a big statement nationally, did you have that in mind that you wanted to break that stereotype of what a conservative would be? Because if you're on the opposing side of votes, you're considered a Black conservative. Like, was that in your mind at all? Or what was in your mind? Like, how were you feeling when you were trying to express this?
I've never thought of myself as a Black conservative or as a conservative. I've tended to think of myself as someone who is committed to reason and to thinking about what makes sense from the point of my bedrock philosophical principles. It wasn't. I wasn't going into there trying to rebrand Black conservatism or anything like that. I was just trying to speak from what I saw to be true.
Okay, another question for you both from John Wilcox.
Like that, but I think that my faith in God actually has helped me a lot to see past people's identity politics and the party they're for or the race they're representing or what have you, how they're separating themselves in this nation. I really think because my faith helps me to see people with just their human, to the point where, certain circumstances can come up, and it's coming up more so now that I am having conversations with people that I don't think normally would have conversations with me, only because they realize like, oh, this is a Black Lives Matter former leader who is, going down this journey with heterodox thinking. She likes Ta-Nehisi Coates, she likes Coleman Hughes and Thomas Sowell. What's going on? Like, they're just interested in talking to me. And I realize that sometimes, a lot of the times in their comment section, there's a lot of people that will throw racial epithets at me or will say certain things. And I honestly don't get upset because I don't get mad too much as I would prior, just because I realize these people are saying this out of fear. They're saying it because of something else. Like, racism is the most cliche thing. It's like something behind that is actually why you have an issue with me, or that you want to tie yourself to white power or whatever. And so basically, long story short, so we can get to Coleman, my faith helps me not to be biased with people.
Yeah, well, I think it's definitely a struggle. I think you have to have a very self-critical personality type. I think you have to be constantly worried that you're wrong, which is, I think you have to be slightly neurotic in order for that to actually work to your benefit as, someone who is trying to overcome your own biases. And then beyond that, cultivating and maintaining friendships with people who routinely disagree with you is very difficult, but very important, because there are limits to how well you'll be able to adopt the other side's perspective as an exercise, right? That's an exercise every writer has to do. You have to imagine what someone who disagrees with you would say. But there are limits to how good you can be at that. You'll never actually be as good at disagreeing with yourself as a smart person and a motivated person who actually disagrees with you will. You'll never work as hard as they will to find the flaws in your own argument. So maintaining and having friendships with people who disagree with you is a big one.
I think a great quality dialogue could happen where two great minds who have opposing views on our race problem could honestly chisel down and find truth in each other's work and maybe walk away with something we all can actually strive toward. I really think that's the point of two people talking. It's not to fight or win. It's to see, okay, what have I been missing? What can I learn? And how can we collect the great true parts of our point of view to make something that will help everyone involved, being us, Americans. And I want to say that I've been on my own journey with critical thinking. I just graduated from NYU with my master's in journalism, concentrated in criticism, and I actually recently came out with an article titled The Black Free Thought, and it was published in Talbot Magazine, and it's reached a lot of people on Twitter. I checked the analytics. It's reached like almost 240,000 people, and so many people have reached out to me, all races, creeds, religions, and it's really like touched people in a way where I'm just thankful for. In that essay, I talk about a moment where I was watching the HR 40 congressional hearing between Ta-Nehisi Coates and Coleman Hughes. And Coates was actually my former professor at NYU, and I still love Coates, and I think he's a great writer, and he's helped me so much with my writing. In that essay, I talked about basically calling Coleman a coon because he was against reparations. Now that I have been on my journey with critical thinking, I revisited that congressional hearing months ago, 6 months ago maybe, saw, actually longer than that, but anyway, and watched it over and over and over and over and over again, and I was kind of like shocked that I even thought Hughes was a coon for disagreeing with Coates. And I realized the first time I watched it, I was watching Hughes and I was listening to Coates because I already made my decision on who won just based on who they were. But the other times, which was like 20, 30 other times, I was listening to both of them and I realized I believed both of them. I believed Coates was, I put in the essay, eloquently accurate, and Hughes was controversially truthful. Hughes wasn't necessarily saying that, no, he wasn't saying, he was not saying that we don't deserve reparations. He was making a case for why it could harm us. But Coates was making the case that we deserve reparations, and he had a list of why, and said because we've been harmed. Both, to me, like I mentioned before, in other interviews, are right. He actually shared that essay on Twitter, Coleman Hughes did, and I thought that was really awesome. And that type of stuff is what we need, and that's why I'm such a big proponent for this discussion, because you don't have to become an enemy. You might even start to like the other person and then really understand where that person's coming from. But one major line that I had in that whole essay, which I will have the link below if you want to read the entire thing, and which is something that a lot of people have been pointing out and saying, like, this is a couple of sentences that's really stuck with them. I said that there's a difference between millions of minds attaching to an idea versus millions of thoughts critically agreeing with an idea. And what I think is happening right now is millions of minds, meaning, by which I mean millions of Americans who really want to solve our race issue they're attaching themselves to Kindi's belief system that has flaws, and they're not critically looking at it, because I think people are just so desperate for change that they are seeing this person that's lauded in society, and by any means necessary, and I quote Malcolm X, they want to believe that this is the way out. And not many people are critically looking at this. But I know by my interactions with Coleman, someone I called a coon and even anti-black, who I realized was not, and who I just have disagreed with on certain things. But this is 2020. Like, no more fighting, guys. We fought so much. I have a couple of months left. No more fighting. Just let's talk. Let's talk. So all the links will be in the description. Thank you for watching, and be safe.